So like most of us, we've spent the last 3-4 months, I've even forgotten how long it is now, basically locked down at home and still trying to make a living, still trying to keep myself relevant, etc. So I've been doing a lot of streaming, and I thought I'd share with you some of the things that I learned about streaming during lockdown, because I'd streamed stuff before, I've done stuff before, it's not new to me, but having to do so much more suddenly from home, frequently, regularly, I learned a lot more about it. And the first thing that I learned is that there are actually a lot of different streaming standards, and some work better than for others. Facebook, Zoom, Skype, all those platforms that we use for social media streaming, they use a protocol called RTMP, and this is actually a very, very old standard that was originally designed to get video from a camera to Adobe's Flash player. And it was never really meant for the way it's being used now, which is for live streaming over Facebook, YouTube, etc. And something to understand about this particular protocol is that actually it's not very robust. So if your internet connection isn't very good, and it's not necessarily the speed that's important, but it's actually how solid the connection is. If you start getting momentary drops in the connection, then you can get problems with your stream very, very quickly. So first thing I learned was don't use Wi-Fi. Wherever possible, use a hardwired LAN connection to your computer, and it makes a tremendous difference. Even on the same network with your same broadband provider, just going to that hardwired connection to the computer that you're using to do the streaming makes a big, big difference. You'll get much better quality and it's going to be far more reliable for you. The next issue, of course, is then how do you get the video from your camera to Facebook, wherever it wants to go. And there are certain cameras, Sony have their Z90 and X80, that can actually do it direct to Facebook and YouTube, and that's one way to go. But very often you might want to switch between multiple cameras, so you need to use something between the camera and your destination. And I came across this piece of software called OBS, Open Broadcast Studio. It's completely free, open source software, and it's really good. And then you need something to get from the camera to the computer itself. And there's lots of low-cost HDMI to USB adapters that you can find all over the place on Amazon and places like that. You don't need to spend a lot of money on them. Your quality of your stream isn't going to be stellar anyway. It's going to be really highly compressed. And then you can use that USB stick to feed into OBS and stream from there. Now your other option is to get some dedicated streaming hardware. And there are various options from Blackmagic and other companies that will allow you to bring in 4 cameras, maybe even more than that, into a very simple vision switcher, connect that to your computer, and then that appears as a webcam in the computer that you can directly connect to YouTube, Facebook, wherever you want to go. And that's a really simple way to do it, and actually that would be my recommendation. Does mean spending a little bit more money, typically starting at around about the £300 mark, depending on the device that you get. But that gives you an all-in-one solution, and they are actually really good devices. They do what you want them to do. It's really simple. Now, what about if you want to do something a bit more robust than Facebook or YouTube? What about streaming for television news and things like that? And that's where the different camera manufacturers have developed their own dedicated streaming protocols. Sony, for example, have their QoS system that allows you to use multiple connections. So if you're using a 4G dongle, instead of just having one 4G dongle, you can have 2, combine those together to give you some reliability, a bit more robustness to your signal. If one network goes down, your signal will still get through, and a lot of error correction that make these really super reliable, robust systems, because these are actually competing with your traditional satellite uplink trucks, which are generally pretty reliable. But it costs a lot more money. But there is an alternative, is that now we have virtual production in the cloud. You have what looks like a full vision mixer. All your sources come in as camera sources. You can vision mix, add titles and overlays, and it gives you a full production suite. Now these services, they all sound very expensive, but in reality they're not. They're quite affordable, and you simply hire the airtime. You don't have to buy the system. You just pay for what you need as and when you need it. So streaming, lots we can do with it. I'm sure it's going to get a lot more use these days. Now we've all been using it regularly anyway. And those are just a few things that I learnt during lockdown.